Why, hello and welcome to episode 3 of Gamer Disclaimer with Meg and Wade.
Woo!
And if I'm not Meg, I must be Wade, and that guy over there is Meg. Meg, how are you doing today?
I'm doing so well. Got 8 hours of sleep last night, and I'm more tired than I've been when I get less sleep. But I'm excited to hang out with my good pal Wade today and do episode 3 of our glorious show.
How was your week, Meg? Did you do anything interesting?
Yeah, so not anything particularly exciting in terms of non gaming, but yeah, just a normal week, just work, and that's about it. Honestly, got back to gaming a little bit, but we'll get into that in the what we played segment. So, how was your week, Wade?
I was also good. What was it? Just tonight, the wife and I ordered a Chicago style deep dish pizza, which is
Mm,
basically just like a casserole. And I was upset because I wanted to get Domino's because I thought there was some promotion going on with Domino's where it was like 50% off menu price pizzas when you order online.
hmm.
And I went on the app, and I don't know if I just dreamed this or I'm being gaslit by some ad, but it is not happening.
It's
But
not real.
after I mentioned pizza, then we had to still get pizza, but we couldn't get regular price Domino's pizza. We had to get stupidly expensive Chicago style pizza.
Gotcha.
Terrible. What are
So
you
you,
gonna do?
you wanted to have that connection that we had when we worked at Domino's together, thinking back at the good times, right?
Oh
Or
yes.
or just cheaper Domino's.
Did we ever split the crew pie,
I
Meg?
I believe we did.
There's no way that we couldn't have, right? Like
Obviously.
that's just how it goes. The crew pie for the uninitiated at Domino's, you were every shift that you worked, you could get a personal size pizza,
Yep.
but that was terrible because they're so small. We also were allowed to share a medium. So if two people kicked in for a crew pie, they could just get a medium.
Yep. I'd never heard pizzas being pies until I went to Domino's, but pizza pie, right, is the
Yeah.
thing. So calling them pies is a normal thing. So yeah, I'm still not sick of Domino's. Like you think you would be after all the Domino's we ate, but I actually prefer it over most pizzas still. So whatever.
Gamer disclaimer approved. Domino's Pizza.
Thank you, Domino's,
That's
for not
what those
sponsoring our show.
endorsements. That's what those endorsements come around it.
Yeah. Well, what have you played this week, Wade?
I had to think about this a bit
Okay.
because apparently, I don't know if my weeks are all blurring together. Like, because we record on Wednesdays and we drop the episode on Wednesdays, so I watched last week's episode and I have to be reminded of what I did 2 weeks ago, and I'm all confused. So last week, I had mentioned that I had just rolled credits on Indiana Jones, and this past week, I finished Indiana Jones. So I got all of the collectibles. I did use some excellent internet guides because there were some that I have no idea how I would have found without them. I also played some Little Kitty Big City, which is where our
Ooh.
achievement of the week will come from later when we talk about it. And I have been playing through God of War remastered on the PlayStation 3, but it's the God of War that originally came out on the PlayStation 2. So not Dad of War, it's God of War.
Sweet. That was on your goals for episode 1, right? Play God of War and
I
other games. So
Yeah, so right now there's 3 games that I have easy enough access to in the God of War series, 1, 2, and 3. I don't know if the PSP ones are really good or how I would go about, you know, sailing the high seas to play a copy of these particular games. And also, there's 3 games in the Donkey Kong Country series, so I'm thinking I might do a God of War and then a Donkey Kong, and then bounce
alternate.
back and forth until we knock all those out. Yeah.
I
What
like
have
it.
you been playing this week, Meg?
So I actually had a pretty successful gaming week. So I finished Firewatch, and I was really intrigued. And I will say, like, without going on a whole other tangent of TV shows with majority decided bad endings, I did not really care for the ending of Firewatch. It was really interesting, and then like everything just was what they thought it was. And I was like, so there's no twists. It just is what it is. So that's not a huge spoiler review unless you play the game or, reveal, but whatever. So I finished Firewatch on stream on Sunday night. I played through Sonic 3 and finished that. So that was cool playing through that one again. And then last night on stream, I started Fury, which I will admit I was not in the mental headspace to try to figure out that game because I was like tired, but I wanted to start it. But like, it's hard, and I learned that I suck at parrying. I am not good at it at all, which I feel like it just takes practice. But so played through that. Played some of the new League season. It feels very similar to the same game. And then I watched a Cloak and Dagger tutorial on Marvel Rivals and have been playing that. So yeah, I finally had time to play some games and have really been diving into that. Also, I got a Fortnite win last night. Played one game with my buddy JR, and we got a dub. So yeah, kind of just a little bit of everything, kind of a mixed match hodgepodge, but I definitely spent some time gaming this last week.
Did you get a Balatro win on stream last night?
I did. Yeah, you had to dip out early, but the guy in the chat that I was hanging out with us kept saying not punish, and I was dead to rights on one of them, and I thought it was over, and then I
just kept like eking by on the last hand.
I got lucky, and bada bing, bada boom. I did pull a legendary Joker for the last round because I was supposed to get 300,000 and it disabled boss effects, so I only had to get 100,000. And on hand 2 of that last one, I got like 111 on a full house, and it was just like, boom, game over. So I was pumped. I won a Balatro round. That always feels good. So
oh yeah.
Yeah. So you know more about what I've been playing than I do.
Well, I mean, I watch the stream when I can check out the stream. So
thanks, Wade.
But we've got a bit of a blast from the past this week, going off of the conversation that we had last week, going through all of the console generations. One of my most formative gaming pieces of literature was issue 150 of Electronic Gaming Monthly, in which, in some month in 2002, I think it was right around the launch of the GameCube and the Xbox, they decided to compile a list of the 100 best games of all time at that time. And we thought that it would be interesting to go through and see how many of these games we think would still be on somebody's top 100 list. Specifically, if there are games that we still think are very good on those kinds of lists. Like I said, it takes place in 2002, and this is Electronic Gaming Monthly, and it's right around the time of the launch of the GameCube. I think the PS2 had been out for maybe like a year or two at that point in time, and the Xbox just came out. So in this issue, they review Metal Gear Solid 2. Do they review Grand Theft Auto 3 in this one as well, too?
Yeah, they do. Yep.
And Halo Combat Evolved, and Pikmin for the GameCube. So, like, there's a lot of excellent games that are not in the top 100 list.
Yeah.
So Mag and I are going to go through this. It's 100 games. Hopefully we'll be able to maintain a pretty good clip while still giving some decent commentary on what we think about these games. Have you ever heard of them before? Like, think there's going to be a couple of moments of like, what is that even doing on there? It's wild that they would even put that on the list. And I believe that due to the screen share functionality, our faces might be disappearing in a second here. So it'll be just a little audio only, but you'll be able to read along with the magazine as we're going along with it too. So Mag,
cool.
If you want to dial up that beautiful screen share.
Yes, let's do it. So, boom. There you go, everybody. Ready to rumble. And I will share this over to you, Wade, as well. Boom. And just like that,
Easy
we're
peasy.
into it.
So
are you odds or evens?
You're evens.
All right.
What do we got first on the list here, man?
So I am evens.
No, I'm evens. I'm evens.
Okay.
Even Stevens.
Even Stevens.
We had this all sorted out beforehand because I wanted Mag to have the pleasure of reading number 1. And that's an odd number, it seems.
There we go.
Decathlete on the Sega Saturn. I know that Meg has got a soft spot for those old Sega consoles, and apparently at the time, this must have been the best of the best track and field type game. I know that Meg has played like Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. I don't know if that necessarily would replace the list. I feel like maybe they put it on the list as like this might have back in 2002 video games maybe were more compared to like actual games and like track and field games. They maybe thought there was some overlap in that as well. Meg, do you got any good like track and field games that you think might be in a top 100 video games of all time list these days?
I don't think so. I just have a memory of like a old Olympics game on the Genesis that was okay. So
There was definitely not a top 100 game, but there was a Looney Tunes wacky sports game in
yes,
which the Tasmanian Devil could throw the discus, which just that's a core memory right there.
yeah, I have another sports game, Tiny Toons as well. They put out bangers, but keeping with our breakneck pace through these games, I have at number 99. We have Wipeout XL for the PlayStation, and I have never heard of this game. Kind of looks like F-Zero knockoff. Yeah, I don't. It says it's a well balanced arsenal and one addicting racer. So that's all I got on that one. What about you? What do you think, Wade?
I also don't think that I've ever played this one before. I feel like if it was me, I would slot an F-Zero in this above Wipeout. Like, because F-Zero 64 was is F-Zero X would have been out by this time. Like, if I'm putting a high-speed racer on a list like this these days, it probably would be something like F-Zero GX, which came out of the GameCube, which didn't exist at the time, so it is what it is. At 98 for the Sega Dreamcast, we had Quake 3 Arena, in which they were highlighting the online play. I don't have much experience playing Quake, but I do know that it was fast. Like, there wasn't a sprint button because your speed was just real fast by default. You were just bouncing around all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, I love arena shooters. I wish they'd come back. I remember playing like Unreal Championship and all sorts of crazy games like that. But sweet. Well, we'll move on down here to 97, Mario Golf for the Game Boy Color. I've never actually played this one, and I'm sad because my first N64 game was Mario Golf, and I absolutely love that game. It is probably the most played game on my Steam Deck to this day as well. Absolutely love it. But you could link up your N64 with the Pokemon Game Boy cartridge adapter on the back of your controller, I believe, and then you could get the characters from the Game Boy Color game over to the N64. But never did it. But I'm sure it's fun. It looks
Yeah,
cool.
both Mario Golf and Mario Tennis, I believe, had that capability to cross over with the N64. And the Game Boy Color versions were like surprisingly deep, as the text mentions here, like RPG, where you would like level up certain elements of your golfer as you were going. And I'm sure it was nice on the go. These days with like golf games, I just feel like I'm a little bit more spoiled for like the true swing, where you actually move the analog stick forward and back to swing versus timed button presses. But it was the style at the time. That's how it goes. At 96, we have Phantasy Star for the Sega Master System, which I have never played before, but I know that people are ride or die for Phantasy Star. Some people even hold it in higher regard than Final Fantasy, which is kind of like your gold standard of the RPGs.
Yeah, I never played it. I have a Master System now, right? But in what looking up best games for fantasy or for Master System countdowns, Phantasy Star was consistently top 3 in everybody's list. So cool. I have number 95, Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link. Never have played it, and it is a sequel that is very much different than the regular Legend of Zelda. They make a note here about the awful CDI Zeldas, so I think this is probably the true actual sequel, because the CDI ones are later in this issue. They have the worst games of all time, and those 3 games are number 2. So.
Yeah, it's not my favorite game by any stretch of the imagination, because when I think of Zelda, I think of that top-down, exploring north, south, east, west. Whereas this was more had a little bit of that, but There also was like a strong emphasis on combat, even more so with the shield and your high and low attacks. And this also was the introduction of Dark Link, so it was a good game in its own right. Let's give it a good scroll, Meg. Number 94, Baseball Stars. I'm
Woo!
not going to have much to say about this one because I'd imagine that this again feels like, and then we can look a little bit further down the road at 92 as well. Like I'm sure these sports games were very fun, and there still are good sports games, but this just seems like I won't call it an odd inclusion, but I don't think that you would have. Well, actually, you might have more fun playing Baseball Stars today than like playing MLB The Show, to be perfectly honest. But maybe that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, I had a baseball game on the Sega. It wasn't this style, but I mean, yeah, I think they just kind of are what they are. They're all kind of the same in that era of time. So, in '93, a banger, Super Smash Bros. For the N64. Going back and playing this game is always really entertaining. I think like it's not bad, but obviously the games got better as time went on. I would say, unless you're in the melee camp. But I played a lot of this game. Introduction to Kirby for me was actually in Super Smash Bros. I know he had games before that, but just a classic. I love it. They have the Pokemon Stadium stage. That was always my favorite when the Pokemon would come out that little door up top and like Electrode would blow up or like Charmander would breathe fire. So I thought it was a pretty cool game and probably not on the list anymore, but easily see. I thought it might be a little bit higher, honestly, than 93, but.
Yeah, right. I have so many great memories of playing this game with the four-player co-op. There was my younger brother, and we had three male cousins. And when we get together, there's five of us and only four controllers. So it was whoever had the lowest number of KOs at the end had to give up their controller to the person that wasn't playing at the time. So much fun, great memories. Great game. I'd imagine that on a list coming up these days, it'd be represented probably by, Ultimates because Ultimate has everybody. It's bananas. At 92, Ice Hockey on the SNES. Excellent game as far as, like, you only had your three different people that you could use to form your team, be they skinny guy, fat guy, or medium-sized guy. And the skinny guy was so fast, he could go everywhere. But yeah, I mean, it was a good game. I'm sure it's still fun to play today, but if you're looking for realism, I know there's people that are just like diehard for NHL '94 on the Sega Genesis. That's everybody's go-to hockey game, I think.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of hockey games. I've always loved like Wayne Gretzky 3D hockey, NHL Hits 2002. I love hockey games. They're really cool. Not to backtrack, but Super Smash Bros. Commercial, probably the best video game commercial, possibly of all time. I think it's really
The one
awesome.
where they were in the costumes. And
Yeah,
they were
so they just start beating
brawling
the heck
out.
out of each other. So funny. Oh man, it's so good. But yeah, ice hockey is pretty basic, but good game. So this is one that's surprising that it is as low as it is on this list because I think people now would probably riot seeing this. At 91, we have Final Fantasy VII. So probably the most well-loved favorite of many Final Fantasy games for people. I guess maybe since it had just come out on PlayStation and it was like a newer game, 97, 5 years, maybe it wasn't appreciated as it is now. There's been 3 or 4 remakes and remasters and reskins of the game. So I've never personally played it or any Final Fantasy games at all. So that's my fun fact for this one.
I also do not have a lot of experience playing Final Fantasy games. I haven't read this list in its entirety in a long time, but I feel like 8, 9, and or 10 might show up later in the list, and these days 7 shines above all of them, so it would be extremely unusual, but we'll see when we see.
Yeah.
Obviously, yeah, these days it is a game that has spawned apparently a remake in 3 parts, 2 of which are out right now and are apparently just amazing with Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth and whatever the unannounced third one is that'll close everything out. At number 90, we've got Resident Evil on the PlayStation. Tank controls, super environmental, like scary experience. And then in the comments, they even talk about the GameCube remake, for which a lot of people hold in high regard as being like, and just an excellent remaster, even before the remaster craze that we found ourselves in right now, where every game is being remade. So it's a real good one, and just spooky all around. Got to make sure you hit those green herbs when you can.
Yeah, Resident Evil classic franchise. This is the starter of it. I've never played it. I have four, but iconic franchise. Moving on to 89, I have Dragon Warrior 4 for the NES, and there's a long bit about it. But the funny thing is that we were just talking about with our fantasy draft that we did, all the remakes and remasters that have been coming out this year. But I was looking in the comments here, and it says, don't spend $100 on eBay because they're making a PlayStation remake of it early 2002. So it looks like the remakes and the remasters were a thing back then as well. So, but never played it. Kind of looks like Zelda, but obviously a little bit different maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I also never played Dragon Warrior. I know that there's like, so what were we talking about before? There was Phantasy Star, and then Final Fantasy, and then there's Dragon Warrior and Dragon Quest. And I don't know if they've gone together. Like, you can murder us in the comments if we want. We just don't know enough about our JRPGs. We know that people like them, and we're fine with people liking them. We just don't know much about them ourselves. So.
This is true.
At number 88, we've got Virtua Tennis on the Sega Dreamcast. I mean, glad to see the Dreamcast is getting some representation on here. I'd imagine all of these evens, that's just like sports games. I don't know if that was accident or design, but here we are. I'm sure it's very good. I know that you and I both got a soft spot for Mario Tennis. We probably would put that above here as far as sure fun, and I'm sure this was the realistic thing at the time, but yeah, I can't imagine this would be on anybody's top 100. Any tennis game would be on anybody's top 100 list these days.
Yeah, I don't know anything about this game other than when I was given a Dreamcast for helping one of my friends move. He gave me a Dreamcast, and this was the game that was inside of the Dreamcast when I got it, and it looks like a tennis ball. So that's my extent of Virtua Tennis. So anyway, another Dreamcast game at 87. We have Sega Rally 2. Just kind of looks like a rally racing game. Nothing too fancy. It says it's got arcade flash while power slide rich physics. So I'm not super huge on racing games. There's only been a handful that I really like. So I don't think this would probably make it on the list nowadays, but I'm not sure.
I don't know if Crazy Taxi is going to show up on this list, but I'd rather rock some Crazy Taxi, I'd imagine, than play Sega Rally 2.
Yeah.
Moving on. At number 86, ActRaiser on the Super Nintendo. I think that this game, which I have not played and I feel real bad about it, did a mix of like side scrolling and also had like some city management elements to it too. So kind of like Sim City sort of stuff, where you would go out and collect resources and then go back and use it to supply your city. And I also think that the sequel ActRaiser 2 is super well loved. I wouldn't be surprised if this showed up on somebody's list these days, because it just was unique in that it combined those two different styles.
Yeah, I've seen videos of it, but the thing that stands out the most to me is Yuzo Koshiro is the one who did the orchestra score, but he's also the person who's made my favorite video game soundtrack of all time, which is from Streets of Rage, and so he's a really awesome musician, and so I probably after this episode and in the future will look at music from this game, because pretty much anything Yozu touches is amazing. So moving on, the game Wade mentioned, number 85 for the N64, we have F-Zero X. I've never really played a whole lot of F-Zero. I know it's crazy, and I know the one on the GameCube is like notoriously really hard. I've played F-Zero 1 on my Switch classic NES library. I've never played this game in particular. I just know that when Super Smash Bros. Came out and we all got Captain Falcon, we were like, who the heck is this guy? And then we learned he is the F-Zero racer pilot, and since has become a very famous, notorious character for his ridiculous taunts and his Falcon punch. But yes, so Captain Falcon, I'd say, is what reminds me of this the most, or this, however you want to word it.
Playing F-Zero X is so stressful because you're managing the like health of your vehicle, but you also can sacrifice some of that health to do a spin attack to knock other people off the road or put yourself in a better position. Like it's frantic and phonetic racing. It's crazy.
There's some
Oh, ads.
advertisements. Dead
Can't
or
skip these
Alive
ads.
3. There we go. Boom. I feel like we're
All
making good
right.
time here, Wade. We're doing all right.
I mean, we'll see when we see. I'm curious if we're gonna run out of steam when we get about halfway. Maybe this is
Nah,
gonna be a two-parter. You'll have to check the clock
never.
once we get about halfway down the road. Number 84, we've got Samurai Showdown 2 for the Neo Geo. I know that I played Samurai Showdown 1 for the Super Nintendo, and I really liked it. I feel like there's a lot of fighting games on this list. I don't know if Samurai Showdown 2 these days is as fondly remembered as it might have been back in 2002.
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with a lot of the old fighting games. I know there's a lot of Samurai Showdowns, but yeah, it looks kind of cool. Going into 83, I would be remorse to not scream out Daytona, which from my arcade in Dickinson, North Dakota. This game's screaming Daytona theme song. This is the arcade version, of course, that I'm talking about, but they ported it to the Dreamcast for number 83, Daytona USA. Never played it, but another racing game, but I'll just never forget Daytona from the arcade
Is this
nonstop.
not the? I mean, you nailed that theme song by that's core memory unlocked. Um, is this the one? I mean, you said you never played it. Is this the one with the rolling start? Is that also something that you heard out of the arcade, where it's like rolling start, where
Probably.
rolling into it? I mean, arcade racers are best racers.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's on here, but like Cruising USA is also super fun with this stuff. I feel like Daytona USA is probably a more polished experience than that. Number 82 is apparently two different games, or they're both maybe like Puyo Puyo games, I guess. Puyo Pop, Kirby's Avalanche, and Mean Bean Machine. I do not like this style of puzzle game. There's certain puzzle games that just do not click with you, and this one never has for me, even though it should be so simple. And I can't even look at this anymore because I'm going to be upset. So, Mag, do you have anything to say about Kirby's Avalanche and Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine?
Yeah, my only experience with it is on Sonic Mania, the chemical plant
Spoiler.
boss is you're playing, Green Bean. Green Bean Mean Machine. But, yeah, not my style, really. Moving on to 81 on the PlayStation, Ape Escape. So I, once again, have not played this game, but I know it is notorious and makes a cameo in one of the games that came out this year, in Astrobot. Looks pretty cool. I'm not sure the premise. Maybe you've played it, Wade.
I remember Ape Escape being a showcase for the DualShock controller because when the PlayStation 1 originally came out, it did not have two analog sticks. So with Ape Escape, you move with the left analog stick and all of your attacks. So like in the screenshot, you can see that you would hit triangle to bring out your lightsaber sword, and then you swing it with the right analog stick. And that's also how you would swing the net. And then you have other items that you can use, and they're all controlled using the right analog stick. So, and yeah, it's just catching monkeys, sneaking up. It's a good time, lots of fun. At number 80, we've got Skies of Arcadia. A lot of Dreamcast love in the beginning of this list. I know that this is a long RPG that was, as they mentioned here, being heading over to the PS2 and GameCube. I think that Skies of Arcadia Legend on the GameCube is like a super sought after game. People have been screaming for a remake for this game that came out in 2000 for the past 20 plus years. Like they want it bad. Why won't you do it, Sega? Not something that I'm into personally, but a beloved RPG nonetheless.
Yeah, I would say RPGs are my least played genre of video games, so I've never heard of this, but, looks like your typical JRPG. Pretty cool. Moving on, I got another banger from the N64, Mario Kart 64 at number 79. So I heard a hot take from a TikTok crew that does video game review stuff, and this guy's hot take was that Mario Kart 64 is the worst of the Mario Kart games in the franchise. But I don't know if I agree with that or not. I'll just say my favorite memories from this is just obviously original Rainbow Road, and the music for that at the time was just like a pretty magical experience. And then, of course, trying to hit the shortcut at the end of Donkey Kong's level, trying to ramp up the side of the the ledge to cut around the curve right before the finish line. But, yeah, pretty cool game.
Are you ready to be Mandela affected, Meg?
Yes, please do it.
Are there walls on Rainbow Road in Mario Kart 64?
Yes. Star Walls.
Very good. There's a lot of people that, for some reason or another, think that there are no walls on Rainbow Road in Mario 64 when there absolutely are.
There are.
They're there. Yeah. This is before Double Dash came out, I just wanted to say, and I know that people love Double Dash. So,
Yes.
at number 78, we've got Star Fox for the Super Nintendo. This game is rad. It has game like they're again, because I must have read this magazine over and over because I still quote this to this very day. In our last episode, we were talking about the Super Nintendo generation, and I literally said that Star Fox looks like half-melted Lego blocks. And wouldn't you know, that's exactly what they described it as in this. Because it's true! They have half-melted Lego blocks. But I mean, yeah, this Star Fox for the Super Nintendo is such a good game that every single Star Fox game they've made after it has just been the exact same plot. Like they're just trying to do the same thing over and over with improved graphics and different things that you can do. Fun game, very fun.
Yeah, I've never played this Star Fox, but 64, I've wore that game out, and I really like it. I hope it's later on in the episode here. And the Corneria theme, an absolute bop, absolute banger in the music genre of video game style. Moving on to 77, the Metal Gear Solid for the Game Boy Color. So a Game Boy Color version of this. Apparently this Game Boy Color game is better than Mario Kart 64, which there's going to be a lot of things probably as we go on that it's like, how in the world is this game higher than this game? And Final Fantasy 7, right? Like, yeah, I don't know. I never played it on the Game Boy Color, but I guess it was good enough to make this list.
The Metal Gear series is one that I need to check out, and this game, if and when I were to check it out, would be pretty low on the list, but it would be on the list. I've always wanted to play it. It's a super rare cartridge. It's like, but I'd imagine that I'd just find a way to emulate it somewhere if I was going to check it out these days.
Yeah.
At number 76, after an ad for the PlayStation 2 controller. Oh, Meg, look at that. It's Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Nice.
I'll be curious to see if there are any Sonic the Hedgehog games that are higher than this. I feel like 2 is the best. That's just my personal opinion. They might put 1 higher on the list. I guess we'll see when we see. But I'll throw it to you, Meg. Sonic 2.
I would say 3 and Knuckles will probably be higher on the list, and 1. But 2, in my opinion, is the best of the old ones. But I don't know. It's a great game. A lot of great stuff in it. They said the level design doesn't top the originals. I don't know about that, but okay. What were you gonna say, Wade?
I was gonna say this is some other YouTube video that I saw was talking about how the Switch 2 doesn't have a very iconic 2, and they highlighted Sonic the Hedgehog 2, the 2 on the box art, as being an iconic 2. It's behind you right now if you need to remember what it looks like.
There it is. Yes.
Yeah. Very iconic, too. You know that, too, when you see it.
Of course. It's on everything. Sonic 2, great game. 75, obviously much better than Sonic 2, is Lunar Silver Star Story Complete for the PlayStation. And
do we just start saying RPG, and because we don't know much about them, we'll just hop and bop and move on?
Yeah, I mean, it looks just like... on the PlayStation, it looks like a Super Nintendo game, but... Yeah,
Well, there was early PlayStation games that still had those pixel graphics before Final Fantasy VII blew everybody's mind with the new ways that they were
but this
doing.
game's better than that according to this list. So okay.
Probably. I mean, it's a smaller number. At number 74, we have Shining Force 3 for the Sega Saturn. It's an RPG. It's a strategy RPG. I don't have anything else to say about it. I'm sure it's very good.
Yeah, it's a game that's an RPG. So if you learn anything about the Gamer Disclaimer crew, it's that we know nothing about RPGs, especially old ones.
We'd like to learn more. We just need short RPGs. Did you play
Yes.
Undertale, Meg? That's an RPG.
I have not. I have it downloaded.
Okay,
So
I see. Very
music in
good.
that game, great. All right, number 73 is Revenge of Shinobi. So I've actually never played this game, but I've heard a lot of good things about it. I have the Shinobi game that is on the six pack. Is that Revenge?
I
Maybe
don't
I
think
have
so.
played this.
I think it's Shinobi. I think it's just Shinobi
I
on the
don't.
six pack.
I don't know. I'm gonna go look while we hear your thoughts on it.
Well, I wish that you were not walking away because my favorite thing about this is the little anecdote that they say further down the way, in that the bosses in the game are literally like Spider-Man and Batman, but unlicensed versions of those things. I'm sure it's just a side scroller ninja action adventure game.
It is
Uh,
Revenge on the six pack.
Revenge is on the six pack.
Yes, that's the one that's on there.
Oh my gosh! Well, then I guess I could just check it out and see what's what.
Yep.
And you've never played it.
No, I have. I played it.
Oh, okay,
I played that
gotcha.
one. That's the only one I've played.
Very good. At number 72, we have Advance Wars, which is not an RPG so much as it is a tactical turn-based military game. I played a lot of Advance Wars back in the day. So much, well, and it still is getting played these days because it did get a remaster on the Nintendo Switch, or a rebooted, I think is what they called it, something like that. Redeployed, who knows. Funny story about the Curse of Advance Wars is that it came out in 2001, I believe, shortly before or after September 11th. So it was around the World Trade Center tragedy. And then the remaster was supposed to be coming out around the time that the war in Ukraine started. So when an Advance War game coming out, bad world events are likely around the corner. So not that you can like set your watch by it or anything, but
Interesting. Yeah, I've never played it, heard of it. I think I have it downloaded on my Steam Deck as a ROM, but I have not dived into it. Moving
let's see
on.
how fast you can do this one, Mag. I believe in you.
I
Just
know.
three little letters.
Moving on to Fantasy Star 2 for the Sega Genesis. It is a crown jewel of sci-fi meets Sword and Sorcery series. It's an RPG, strategic, and probably really cool.
I'm sure it's very good.
Yep.
Number 70, Ninja Gaiden 2: The Dark Sword of Chaos for the original NES. My first exposure to Ninja Gaiden was on the original Xbox, playing a game that hadn't come out at the time they made this list. Ninja Gaiden 2 is probably the best of the three that came out on the NES. I don't know if the other ones are going to be higher on here. I suppose we'll see when we see. And it's a series that still is living on this day because the developers of Blasphemous are working on a new Ninja Gaiden game that I actually took in our fantasy draft too, Mag.
Woo. Yeah, I've never played 2. I've played 1. The music has always been cool. I just remember this series being notoriously difficult. So,
Well,
I'm
and I
sure.
think it also probably had some heavy inspiration for a game that we both appreciate for different reasons, The Messenger.
Whoop whoop. That will not be on the list, by the way.
Hadn't come out yet.
So I have number 69, which is Metroid for the NES. So I own this game, even though I've never really played much of it. I know Super Metroid will be a lot higher on this list, but this is the one that started it all, and I guess you could say started the Metroidvania craze originally.
I mean, Metroid is interesting in that, like, I don't want to say the original core games, but I feel like for Mario and Zelda, and this could be just conjecture, I suppose, at Nintendo HQ, like they were writing down elements of gameplay that they wanted in games, and I feel like they were putting them in either the Mario or the Zelda column. And I feel like some of those spare ideas got left over and put into Metroid because there's, certain elements of exploration and things are blocked off. I don't think that this game would be on anybody's top 100 list these days. The only possible contender might be the remaster that came out for the Game Boy Advance Metroid Zero Mission, which is quite good. I like that one a lot. At number 68, we've got Super Ghouls and Ghosts for the Super Nintendo. Just the Dark Souls of its day, I think. A stupidly difficult arcade game. I've played it. I suck at it. It's challenging. It's very challenging if that's the kind of thing that you're into.
Yeah, never played them. Have heard about the notoriously difficult, like you get 2 hits and then you die, if I'm remembering right. And yeah, never played it, but have seen it's like a legendary game for a reason. Moving on, number 67, we have Street Fighter Alpha 3, which is PlayStation and Dreamcast. I'm not 100% sure if this is the game, but I think this is the game where Sakura makes her debut, and she has really cool music, and I like that character in Street Fighter. I'm sure other Street Fighter games will be on the list later on down the road, but Street Fighter, great franchise, and this is a cool game.
This is the kind of game that I feel like might even be higher on the list in certain circles. If it was a list of just the top 100 fighting games of all time, obviously it's going to be higher numerically, but I feel like it might even be above some of the other fighting games that we'll see later on this list. At number 66, it's Donkey Kong 94 for the Game Boy. This game slaps. The first 4 levels are just the original Donkey Kong arcade, and then from then it's 96 more levels of amazement where you're just hopping and bopping around, avoiding barrels and whatever else Donkey Kong might be throwing at you. Just super fun puzzle platforming, I guess is what you might call it. Figuring out the right way to approach each level.
Yeah, I've never played the Game Boy version, but Donkey Kong itself, pretty influential game, so I'm sure, it seems like it'd be a good game for the Game Boy. Next up, 65, for the Nintendo 64, we have Perfect Dark, which I have good memories of this game. Obviously, a lot of people played GoldenEye, but my friends had Perfect Dark, and there was a gun called the Farsight, I think it was called, where you could see through walls. And I remember I was always the alien character, and I would just run in circles, and my friends would try to shoot me in the head with the Farsight. But I think it's made by Rare, so same people who made GoldenEye, and then you needed the expansion pack to play it, if I'm remembering correctly. But pretty influential and good first-person shooter. I think GoldenEye gets more like love and appreciation because it was a lot of people's first-person shooter, but I think Perfect Dark was probably the better game.
Yeah, I can speak to the expansion pack question because that's what everybody's here for. It's what N64 games required the expansion pack. You needed the expansion pack to play the single player campaign in Perfect Dark. If you didn't have the expansion pack, you could still play the multiplayer, which is weird, but it is what it is. Going back and playing GoldenEye or Perfect Dark on original hardware these days is just an exercise in it's way better in my memory than it is in actuality. Like, how did we play this? It's just chugging along at, 33 frames per second. Frame rates just dipping all over the place. The N64 controller is the least intuitive thing on the face of the earth now that we've all been conditioned to use 2 sticks to navigate in a 3-dimensional space. But at the time, it was very influential. At number 64, we've got Mega Man 2 for the NES. This game is in both presentation of pixel art and in music and in challenge and atmosphere. It's a good one. It's one of the best. I'm sure that it would easily be the highest placed Mega Man on anybody's list they came out with today, unless somebody was going to try and make a case for 3. But yeah, for the old NES Mega Mans, it's 2 or 3. People like one or the other.
Yeah, great music. Fun game. Not incredibly. I mean, they're all hard, but I'd say this is like beatable. Whereas some of the other ones later on feel a little bit maybe tougher, especially like 9. But I have beat 9. But yeah, cool game. I love Mega Man. It's one of my favorite franchises ever. So, number 63 on the PlayStation, we have R-Type, and I was watching some retro videos the other day, and there was a gazillion R-Types that exist, and basically it's I guess they call them like a shoot 'em up, but basically like you're in the sky and it's bullet hell. You're just like flying around and trying to shoot the bosses a gazillion times. If I remember, side-scrolling shooter, but yeah, I've never actually played this specific one.
I also don't know if I have because like again, there's all kinds of different shooters. Like you've got your side-scrolling shooters and then your vertical shooters where you're moving up on the screen. Obviously in this one you're moving to the right. Um, I feel like they really were at their I don't want to say they were at their best, but the height of their popularity was probably in the arcades because it was like see how far you can get with a quarter and just move to home consoles. They kind of changed things up. I know that Ikaruga is a very beloved shooter, but I feel like that one's a top-down and not a side-scroller. But yeah, it's a good game, that's for sure. We had Resident Evil 1 before on the list, and now we've got Resident Evil 2 at number 62 on the PlayStation. Probably more of the same, twice as much. I know that not too many years ago, the Resident Evil 2 remake that came out was kind of kicked off this Resident Evil remake era that we find ourselves in right now. But yeah, like it made things as scary as it could when the graphics looked like this.
Yeah, I mean, I have not played this. Is this the one with what's his name, Nemesis, the bad guy, or is that a
That
different
is
one?
3.
Okay, well, I've never played it, but I always thought the camera angle in the first 2 Resident Evils was really interesting because it's like kind of just like a weird camera angle, I would say, with
That's
like
how they forced the horror on you, is that you would enter a new area and the camera angle would switch, meaning that how you were controlling your character all of a sudden was going to change in perspective to be able to spin yourself around to get out of danger.
yeah. Okay. Moving on, 61 Nights into Dreams for the Sega Saturn. So, never played this game. It is made by Sonic Team, I'm pretty sure. And the character is cool. I know at this game store at Myrtle Beach that I go to every time we go to the beach, they have a display that this guy donated that is constantly running 24/7. You can play it for Sega Saturn, and it is Nights. So, never played it. Thought about buying it as just like a collector's item just because the artwork's cool, but that's about it on this one.
I believe it also came out on the Xbox Live Arcade Super. Well after this, like the 360 wasn't even a twinkle in anybody's eye at the time that they wrote this list. But that's how I would play it today if I was going to play it. But I haven't really personally checked it out. So
Sick. More advertisements.
go back
Lots.
up. I need to know the prices.
I need to know
Oh
how
my
much
gosh!
they
Look at
all.
that! Look at that arcade stick.
Ooh.
Oh, at number 60, Super Mario RPG for the Super Nintendo. I don't want to just read the copy, but it does say the result of a dream collaboration between Nintendo and Square. It is one of the finest RPGs. So I don't play many RPGs, but I did play this one because Mario was in it. And it had an active battle system, I guess, which is kind of different from other RPGs, where when you timed your button presses correctly, you would do extra damage. This is obviously carried over into the Paper Mario series, and I think the Mario and Luigi series as well. But yeah, it's got Gino in it, and Mallow, and Princess Peach, and Bowser as your party characters that you can get. People love Gino. It's kind of just a zany story. It's a good game, and it got remade on the Switch as well. So
Yeah, I was about to say it got remade on the Switch and probably was the godfather of the Mario and Luigi games potentially that came out later on. And so, yeah, kind of an underrated game. I feel like it was less accessible until it came out on like the Wii Virtual Console, and then a lot more people were introduced to it. Moving on to 59, Virtua Fighter 2 on the Sega Saturn. So I have a very faint memory of playing this game at this my mom's friend's house. They had a Saturn, and I thought it was so cool at the time. I do not remember anything else other than that about it. Obviously, Virtua Fighter is kind of a staple in the beginning parts of the fighting game. I feel like it's kind of fizzled out to other games like Tekken and Street Fighter and things like that nowadays. But I know at the time, Virtua Fighter was kind of a powerhouse, and I think the Saturn version of Virtua Fighter 2 is like a pretty good one at the time.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, I'd be curious if we just took all of the fighters on this list when we were done and see if their placement really makes sense looking back on them now. Yeah, I don't have much experience with Virtua Fighter 2, but I'm sure that at the time it was the most graphically amazing thing that anybody had ever seen before. At number 58, we've got Sonic the Hedgehog, which it seems is higher than Sonic 2, which I don't agree with, but what are you going to do? Went a
Yeah,
little bit faster. Sure, there's still good tunes. Go ahead, Mag. This is your thing.
yeah. I mean, I just played through it 2 weeks ago on stream, and I'm sure at the time, I think it was groundbreaking and actually a competitor for Mario. But in terms of itself, there's like no spin dash. Like I feel like two actually improved on everything and was just better. But you know, I understand maybe like for nostalgia's sake at the time for this article, maybe that's why they gave it a nod.
Do you still have
Um,
dreams about that fancy Starlight level?
Of course, no, I don't. Oh man, moving on to 57, Final Fantasy 9. That
As I
guy,
said, there's apparently they thought that this Final Fantasy 9 was better than 7.
yeah, and they got Goku over here. Not really, but he has a tail and yellow hair. But it's an RPG, and I have not played any of them. Interesting to see it ahead of 7. But at the time, maybe they just thought it was better.
Yeah, there might have been some recency bias where it just came out in 2000 as well too. So tough to say. At number 56, we've got Landstalker for the Genesis. I do own this game. I
Huh.
tried it out a little bit, so I bought it at the recommendation of this list because it said it's as close to Zelda as Sega ever got, but it has this isometric view, and the copy here is correct in that it said that jumping is a nightmare in this isometric view. But like I mean, people must have really appreciated it at the time. I didn't really care for it. I would put I don't know. I'd probably put Zelda 2 higher than this if I was making this list, but it is what it is. As a Genesis enthusiast, Mag, you ever heard of this game before?
No, I have no clue. Never heard of it, and doesn't look like doesn't look like something I'd be interested in playing. But at the time, cool, good on them. All right, so number 55, Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening DX. So this looks like it does. It has the first Zelda and Link to the Past, which is they're both in the top 100, and honestly, probably in the top 50. So bringing that handheld to the Game Boy. Game Boy was just like so awesome. So it's cool that they were
Have you
able to
not played
port
this game,
those.
Meg?
No, I haven't.
Oh my goodness. Countless hours spent on the Game Boy playing this game.
Yeah,
It's
I've never played it.
fantastic. So you can see down at the bottom of the screenshots, you could map different weapons to the B and the A button. So they happen to have their shield on B and their sword on A. But you also could just unequip your sword altogether and just like go around with your shield and throw in bombs. Or if you used bombs and the bow at the same time, you could shoot bomb arrows. I don't know if this was the first introduction of bomb arrows to Zelda.
Hmm.
And it also had like I feel like the Game Boy Color lent itself really well to Zelda's single screen environments where you would just be operating on the one screen and then you would scroll off the right and it would be a new screen on the next one. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That was fantastic.
interesting.
At 54, we've got Devil's Crush for the TurboGrafx 16. I know that this game has been cited as the inspiration for many a spiritual pinball successor of games that are still coming out to this day that show up on Steam and whatnot. So if you like pinball, I'd imagine that 54 is as high as we'll see any pinball game. I doubt that we'll see Sonic Spinball on this list by the time that we get to the end of it. But yeah, it's a pinball game. People like pinball. It was a game before video games.
Yeah, I mean, it looks interesting with spinning pentagrams and shooter gameplay. I mean, I don't know. Looks interesting. Moving on, there's a spoiler in here. We won't spoil it for you guys. Well, if you're audio listeners, I guess we can say it. But Super Punch Out for the Super Nintendo at number 53. Punch Out's one of my favorite classic games of all time. I'd say it's one of the first boss rush games. I never actually have played Super Punch Out, but my friend Bo really likes this game. Has spent a lot of time on it. But yeah, similar vibes. It looks like to the first one, but obviously updated graphically, big time.
Yeah, you say boss rush and I say rhythm game because that's just what they are. Like you've just got to find the right rhythm and react to the things that are happening as it goes. Time your blocks, time your punches.
Boom.
Tony Hawk. Oh my gosh, he's upside down.
Woo! All right, we're almost halfway, Wade.
I really think that we are going to stop as we get halfway here, Mag, but we'll see if you can convince me to power through another 50 games. This is going to be such a long episode to begin with. 52. How do you even say this word? Herzog Zwie?
Yep.
It appears to be a real-time strategy game that I don't know anything about on the Sega Genesis. I'm going to defer to Mag, who knows all kinds of things about the Sega Genesis, to tell you that he's never heard of this game before in his life.
Yeah, I have not. And real-time strategies are not my cup of tea, but I know that StarCraft 2 is one of the first esports, so that's a strategy game, I guess. Moving on to 51, Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse for the NES. 51 here. Just Castlevania game. I've never played any of the Castlevania games as well. And looks like a side-scrollers, hack and slash, cool style game. I don't know, Wade, do you have any experience with this one?
I own this game, but I have more experience playing Castlevania 1, 2, and like the Game Boy Advance and DS games than this one. But people really like this one. There's multiple characters that you can play as, and it also has, I think it's the first appearance of Alucard, who is Dracula's son, and Alucard is just Dracula spelled backwards, which is a good fun fact.
Interesting.
I also think that like I was recently playing Bloodstained Curse of the Moon, which I think has a lot of inspiration from Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse. There's similarity there. So I've like played a modern version of this style of game, but not as much the original game. And we'll see if Castlevania 1 is higher on this list once we get to it.
Cool.
So number 50 for the Sega Saturn is Guardian Heroes. The copy reads, throw Final Fight, a big golden zombie, Street Fighter, and all the insane 2D effects you can find into a blender and hit puree, whip until creamy smooth, and you get Guardian Heroes. I, even from that description, don't know anything about this game, and I feel like after reading that description, I maybe need to take a break for a week and research what Guardian Heroes is and possibly come back with explanation before we jump into the rest of these games. Do you know anything about Guardian Heroes, Meg?
I don't. Looking at this picture, looks like an interesting art style. And yeah, but I see like health bars and like mana bars, it looks like. So is it RPG-esque? I'm not sure. Who knows?
Nobody knows. Impossible to tell. But yes, I think that we may have bit off more than we can chew with this, where we really thought that we could have got through this 100 list, but as per usual, we've just got too much to say about these things. So if you enjoyed what you saw so far, you have a whole week to look forward to the next episode, which is going to be more of the same. It's episode 3, and we're already doing our first 2-part episode, Meg. How fun.
Can't believe it. But yeah, no, I think there'll be more games that we have heard of as we get into second half of this.
You'd think.
more than likely. It'll be interesting to see where some of these other ones are at. But yeah, we'll two-part it since we've been running for a little while on this one. But before we leave, of course, we have our reoccurring segments every week. And so we will hand it off to Wade for Wade's Achievement of the Week.
The achievement of the week, though not always one that I have to have earned, is one that I have earned. It was in Little Kitty, Big City, in which you play a cat who gets knocked off of the stoop on a high-rise apartment window and has to find their way home. And the achievement is called If I Fits, I Sits. And it is for enjoying 5 cardboard boxes. So you just hop into a box.
Huh.
You chill out in there.
I've never
As a cat
played.
would.
I've never played Little Kitty Big City, but it sounds like something that would be pretty fun.
It is you're being a cat. You're doing cat stuff. It's a grand old time.
Doing cat stuff.
You get hats.
Is it like Stray?
No, I don't think it's like Stray.
Okay. Have you
But I
played?
haven't played Stray, so that's not fair.
Okay. Yeah.
Like graphically, it's different, and I feel like Stray is like a dystopian future where you're a cat, and this one, you're just in the city. There's like people walking around. You can go into shops and like steal bananas and stuff. There's another achievement for like picking up a scissors and chasing a human with it
Huh.
because you're dangerous. You're a killer kitty.
Killer Kitty.
Yeah.
We love cats. Cats are the best. All right. Well, thanks, Wade. I like, what was it called? What was the name of it? If it what?
If I fits, I sits.
That's fantastic. That is the mantra of most cats. So, cool. Well, that means it's time for us to get ready to close out the show here, which we will transition into Mag's Song of the Week. And this week we're going to be looking at, I don't even know if you can call it underrated, overrated, confusingly rated Sonic 3D Blast on the Genesis. Some people love it, some people hate it, but it is a cool game. And we're going to listen to Diamond Dust Zone Act 1. It is an ice level. Ice levels notoriously have really cool music in old games, but it's one of my favorite songs from the game, and I think it's really cool, and it'll be a good one to exit on. So, Wade, I'm going to actually let you close out the show this time instead of closing out the show and saying, Wade, close us out, after I have already properly done so. So, Wade, close us out.
Well, if you've made it this far, thanks for sticking around and listening. And again, not that we're seeding the ground so that you have to come back next week to see what happens with 50 through 1. I bet that Mag will actually put a link to the website where we've been reading the full publication in the description, just so you can go and check it out yourself. Because like I said, it was that issue of Electronic Gaming Monthly was like a formative text for me growing up, where I just read it over and over, and I'm like, maybe someday I'll get to play all 100 of these games. And unfortunately, more and more games have come out over time, so I don't know if we'll ever get back to all these ones. And better versions of those previous games have come out. So, but yeah, we'll see you guys here next week again for more of the gamer disclaimer with Meg and Wade show as we tackle numbers 50 through, or was it? Yeah, 50 through 1, all the way to number 1. What will the number 1 game be? Nobody knows. Could be anything.
What could it be? Who knows? Come see us next week. Thanks for watching. Bye.